Hello there, good afternoon. I'm Edward Lane, and I'm here in the studio with two distinguished gentlemen. Um, Brigadier retired Mark Phillips, the Prime Ministerial candidate of the People's Progressive Party Civic, and Mr. Joe Hamilton, former Member of Parliament and, of course, a candidate for the PPPC. Gentlemen, welcome to this discussion.
Thank
Eddie,
you.
thanks for having us.
Thank you, Eddie.
We're just over 40 days from the general and regional elections on March 2nd. Um, and the campaign is in full swing. Some political parties, well, some political parties, if I should put it this way, have very little to boast about and to talk about during this period, and for that reason, they seem to be adopting some very extraneous approaches with regards to uh, winning votes or hoping that they can win support. While the PPP, for example, has been out there over the past few months talking to the people on the ground, talking to them about the plans, programs, and projects that will improve their lives once the PPP is re-elected to office. The reason why we are having this discussion today is to deal with one of the many issues that have been coming up on the campaign trail, and this one has to do with what could be termed incitement and intimidation of voters across the country, where leaders or persons who profess themselves to be leaders are busy trying to stoke or to promote divisiveness and to promote intimidation and fear, drive fear into people. One such person, both Brigadier Phillips and Mr. Hamilton, is Valda Lawrence, the chair of the People's National Congress Reform, who last evening, I think it was, spoke at a poorly attended meeting in Kitty, um, where she was telling people about going out there to protect their ballots and to be outside of polling stations and at polling stations after polls would have been closed. Joe, I'm going to give you the first chance to go at this before I bring in Brigadier Phillips.
Yeah, the first thing, Eddie, is this isn't new. If you go back to the records, you would see that in 2015 elections, Mr. Granger used that same language. And I was at the receiving end of that same approach. You would know that that language allowed for or caused thugs and goons of the APNU+AFC to torch and burn about 8 vehicles in Sophia. And secondly, attempt to burn down 2 houses belonging to our supporters. And all of these people, where they were congregated on and around the polling places. So all they did is rush to that location where a foolish allegation was made. So importantly for people who are listening, since we instituted counting at the place of poll, the ballot box after elections and a statement of poll is irrelevant. The ballot box was relevant when the ballot boxes used to be moved to one location for votes to be counted. We've changed that in 92. We're at the place of poll. Before GCOM moves from the polling place, all the representatives and the polling agents of every party, they would have a statement of poll of the count. Secondly, the presiding officer will place that prominently on the polling station. So the fact that you say congregate at the poll, it can be nothing else but Vala Lawrence is trying to already intimidate and to drive fear. And Basil Williams went further. He said you must be there so prominently so that the GCOM reps in the polling station, they must be aware that you're out there. If that isn't intimidation, what else is? And so, as I said, it is not necessary, but it is necessary for the APNU-AFC to create that kind of environment For me, I always say, Eddie, is this. Security matters. I believe the security forces will deal with it and must deal with it. So I deal with political matters. I'm a politician. So when I go to a political meeting and I am speaking and I see all the excitement and incitement from APNU+AFC people, I don't even pay attention to it because I am counting on the police force to deal with the security matter that is out there. And I can testify to the fact that just last week at a meeting at Bagotville, I was there, and APNU, they came out there by the dozens with the flag, and the police dealt with it condemningly. And so they must be applauded for that. And there's a recognition, and my sense is that the police force leadership has determined that they don't want no such activity that can lead to violence on their watch. And I would take the opportunity here to compliment the police force with the attitude and action. And so far, Lawrence, I don't know, it can get better coming out of Lawrence and Basil Williams and the APNU+AFC leadership. I suspect it can get worse and will get worse, their language, because what else can they say to people? They have no manifesto. They have no plan that they put before the Guyanese people. So all you have to do now, they do it politically, is talk around issues that are not important to the lives and the welfare of the people.
That is why you said you are now going to deal with the security matters. So I'm going to bring in the security expert, the real brigadier, to speak to the implications of statements of this nature. Brigadier Phillips.
Well, thank you, Ed. And if I should add to Joe's comment, security during this time, just over 40 days to election, security this time is very important. A matter of fact, is of paramount importance. And who must lead security at this time? If I'm to answer that question, we, the political leaders who are campaigning from all the political parties involved in this process, we must lead by example because our followers are listening to us. Our followers will do as we say and do as we do. So we cannot have a case where political leaders are campaigning using coded language, coded messages to their supporters to commit violence. Our campaign must be clear, it must be on issues. And we, the political leaders, must take the lead in not delivering to our supporters any coded language, any subliminal messages to go out there and commit acts of violence. We have the issue with the flags and the pulling down of flags. That itself can lead to violence that we would have seen in the past. And we cannot have a situation where you wait 24 or 48 or 96 hours afterwards to now condemn the act of your supporters. Let us speak on the platform to our supporters. It's about time we have a peaceful election in Guyana. Let us talk about our manifestos. The PPP civic campaign has been on the manifesto, what we plan to do for Guyana. Come after the 2nd of March with a victory by the PPP. See, these are our plans for Guyana. Likewise, we expect all other participants in this election to utilize their manifestos and campaign on the manifestos, campaign on issues, things that you would have done. For example, the coalition government, you were in power for 4.5 years, a little bit over 4.5 years. Tell your supporters what you did in those 4.5 years. Not to pull down flags, not to put Jack there in a box and throw away the keys and throw him overboard. Those are coded messages that you're sending to your supporters. Let us campaign on issues. That's the first line of security. We, the leaders, we take the lead in our campaign, and our supporters must remain focused on the message that we're sending them, and the message must be a peaceful election. It's okay for us to remind the police force or the discipline services on the whole that they ought to be professional, but of course, we have to take the lead and we have to help the police force and the discipline services in this whole process. It's about time Guyana show the rest of the world that we can conduct an election in a peaceful manner. An election where the competitors campaign based on issues.
I think Joe made the point about the coalition not campaigning on issues, because there have been allegations in the past about leaders in the coalition going to communities and to have whisper campaigns, um, racist kind of whisper campaigns, and so forth. And when you look at the history of the major party involved in the coalition, the largest party in the coalition, Joe, there is a history when it comes to election violence and when it comes to issues on elections day with regards to ballots and so forth.
I think, Eddie, and what mesmerizes me is that the leadership in the PNC and APNU, they're operating like if we are still in the 1970s and 80s. Their campaign style and things they do. The fact is, we're in the 21st century where we have smart devices. So your conduct, your behavior, your language, your speech instantaneously would be there presented to the world to see and to hear. So it is not when we just had a pocket radio where you only have one in the village, and that is what concerns me. And it seems like they are unconcerned with the fact that people can take a film of their activities. People can take a video of their activities and place it out there for the world to see. Like the guy is up there, aimlessly. He's trying to take down a drum that is a symbol of it. And you have his granny, and now the people, they gather on the street. Like if this is not being played out, the people are seeing their action, they're being recognized. And so that is the point. From the leadership down, they operate in the past, So your judge and Mark would tell you that people are judging us as we go along. People that don't know you. I went to Essequibo and I met hundreds of people who knew me personally. It's the first time they're seeing the man. But they can say to me what they heard me saying over a period. So they knew me long time before they can shake Joe Hamilton and Lyndon in the same place. And I'm sure all of us would have experienced that.
Yes.
And therefore, as Mark has said, political leaders, we have to lead by example. We have to present and project an image of a Guyana where we must have a free and fair and peaceful elections. And after that, we go back to building the country. And that is what, and so I can only hope that the leadership in the PNC, and more so the PNC, because all of this that is being driven this way is driven by elements and leaders of the PNC, right? The other guys are just followers. I will only hope that, as they have said to people 2011, 2015, that they're changed and they're a new beast, they're a new animal. I will only hope that they project themselves like this new animal that they have said. But everything they do, suggesting to the nation who's looking on, and to young people. You see, a lot of young people weren't exposed to PNC activities and antics. But today they're seeing it for themselves, that they can say, the same thing my grandmother told me about. And I would only hope that for the peace and safety of this country, that they do differently, they speak differently. But then again, as Marcus said, if you don't have a program and a plan to put to the Guyanese people, then you're likely to see all kind of stupidity on the platform in the half hour they give to you. And that is what is happening. Mark, he said his schoolmate, she goes to the podium to speak to scores of persons, and all she can walk with is a black plastic bag,
Yeah.
to present to people. I mean, the tragedy of people putting themselves up as leaders. Not to say to people, this is what I will do for you. This is what we did in the 4.5 years, they're not saying that. They're saying all of these things that can create problems for the country. We would only hope that, and we call on GCOM. GCOM is pivotal in the election cycle. We call on GCOM, we call on the international community, we call on the observers that are here, and the ERC and whoever, to condemn any action of any political leader that suggests that the language or the action is to create strife and to attempt to intimidate people as we approach these elections.
But and that's the next question I was coming to, because there have been quite a number of occasions where you heard from leaders in the coalition. You heard inciting statements. You heard racist statements. You heard a lot of lies on many occasions. If anyone is to check out some of what they would have said, but there somehow seems to be going unchecked to some extent, apart from the ERC's recently condemning the statement by Joe Harmon.
Mhm.
But there hasn't been anything yet from GCOM really with regards to the manner the campaign is being conducted, especially from the coalition. Do you think because of the fact that there is no really, there seems to be really no checks and balances with regards to what comes out of the mouths of politicians on the campaign trail, maybe contributing to them becoming more bold? Brigadier?
Well, there's a lot of regulations out there for the ERC to follow in doing their work, and my understanding is that there's a set of guidelines and sanctions that can be used against political leaders during this time. I'm yet to see the ERC going beyond the last statement and perhaps being a little bit more engaged, a little bit more, um, you know, serious as it comes to ensuring that we create the environment, right, the climate for this peaceful election that I'm talking about. It's about time that we have some serious sanctions against um, those who decide not to play by the rules. Okay, this is a message we must send to the Guyanese people. This is a message we must send to the world that we can conduct a peaceful election, and the ERC has an important role to play. GCOM has a role to play too, and it's about time we hear more in terms of the voices from of the people at at GCOM and the ERC with relation to what is happening now on the campaign trail.
Joe, the next question I want to raise with you is the fact that um, we've seen in the past where these statements were the result, and you spoke to 2015, and there are so many other occasions outside of Sophia. You had on the East Coast where persons were beaten, persons were intimidated, and so forth. Do you think uh, this may be this kind of incitement that is starting to come up from the coalition may be somehow linked to them seeing that the results of the elections will not really go their way, and because of that, the potential this has um, to maybe see a repeat, and we hope it doesn't happen, a repeat of probably the 1997 elections.
The thing is, Eddie, I say this with all the mad utterances you see come out of the mouth of leaders of the PNC, APNU. They're not silly people as regards elections and how elections are happening. I'm sure they would have in there their pollsters doing their polls. And I'm sure they know what the poll is saying. You follow me? They know what the poll is saying. So the fact that they have that information, they've become desperate. Importantly, and we must say this, no political party can succeed, Eddie, if you cannot say to the people what I did for you in the last period and what I intend to do for you. First point. Secondly, you cannot conduct a political campaign and hope to win the elections with your lead person, your presidential candidate, missing in MIA. Those are fundamentals of a political campaign. That is what gives campaign energy. That is what causes your people to really rally behind you. And so there are a lot of missing elements. We're just 40 days, and this political party that is in government, they don't have a manifesto before the Guyanese people. You'd want to think that they would have been, Mark, before in front of us, because they're in government presently,
Exactly.
and they would have a better feel of what should happen. But they're faltered; they're not doing that, and so they as I said, I would only hope that it gets better, but I don't put it past the leadership of the party. Importantly, also, is this. As I see it, what is happening there at the level of the PNC, people are fighting for position and space. And people are likely to get more outlandish to prove to supporters that I am more ready and able to deal with PP and Jack. Do you want to you understand me? So this is an internal battle that is impacting externally on the whole Guyanese socio-political situation. So when you hear Armand use outlandish language and racist language, and Volda on the other side, and Basil on the other side, these are the three protagonists who see themselves emerging to take over the PNC at Congress Place. And so they have to play to the gallery of their supporters to show that I am more vigilant, I am more revolutionary and radical than the other one. And it's a sad thing, but that is part of the statement and language you see going forward to their supporters. Eddie, I believe, and I count on the Guyanese people. I have said before, when a man don't have a house, it is easy for he go and let's set fire to Mark Phillips or Eddie house. When you say you have a house, you think a lot of times because somebody could set fire to you. When you have a car, it's easy to vandalize people's car. But when you have one also, so I'm saying all of that to say in the last period in the PP government, they have caused a lot of people to own things that they never had. And therefore, people got vested interests. So I'm counting on people that the traction that PNC hope to get from people will not come. I'm counting on the Guyanese people to be smart, to be sensible, to be sane, and to seek to protect this nation that we call Guyana, and to see it develop in the interest of our children and grandchildren.
Brigadier, what would you want to say, in line with what Joe would have said just now, that the maturity of the people with regards to these calls and these attempts to incite and to intimidate? What do you want to say to the Guyanese people who, I assume, based on what Joe is saying and based on my own observation, are more mature, are more politically conscious, and understands how elections are to be conducted around the world, which are free and fair and free from fear?
Well, I want to say it clearly and loudly to the Guyanese people that elections is linked to a right. The right of choice, the right to select, the right to elect who will run the affairs of the country that you live in for a period of time. What we are doing as a people here, as voters and supporters of party, we are exercising that right to select who will run the affairs of Guyana for the next 5 years. And don't let to the people of Guyana, don't let anybody violate your rights, your right to vote in this case. What we want in order to safeguard that right, as I mentioned before, is a campaign without any violence, a campaign that is based on the issues, right? And here, as I'm saying, a campaign based on the issues, let the coalition government at the rallies come to you and tell you what they did for the last 4.5 years and what they intend to do for the next 5 years, because that's what we're doing. We're coming to you as a PPPC and we're telling you about our track record from 1992 to 2015 when we were voted out of office, and we have excerpts from our manifesto, and we're telling you what are our plans for the next 5 years, 2020, 2025, should we be elected.
The I just want to touch before I know we're almost out of time, and this I think is in line with what you outlined, Joe. The whole issue of desperation and seeing the writing on the wall, where attempts are now being made to skew um, information, to misinform um, the people of Guyana, and I can speak to three advertisements that are generated by the coalition, which has to do with why the PPP should not re-elected, and the whole story of 400 blacks and phantom squads, and mismanagement of the sugar sector, which all I understand based on what I've been hearing are fabricated stories. Um, about trying to deny the loss of jobs, and to talk about economic growth and so forth. Um, you may want a response first.
The fact is, I thought this 400 uh, young black men that we put it to rest several months ago, because we came to one of your programs, myself, Nigel, and Bishop Edgell, and we had a list of the 400 and odd names. I remember on the list you had about nearly 200 people of Indian origin and Amerindian origin. So that myth already is killed. Of the other 200 policemen, people belonging to the service, some 30 odd, I think, of those. And then you have the others were the known criminals. So unless APNU+AFC and the PNC are owning Feynman and Blackie, as their own, you understand me, and Douglas and whatever, as upright citizens, Sunday school boys that we that we should not speak about, So they can't have it both ways. It's either they're criminals or they're your freedom fighters. One time you're saying they're not your freedom fighters, but yet you're trying to say that we did the security forces did an injustice when they killed these guys. So Eddie, that matter in my view, they're seeking to resurrect it, and we have to deal with it again. But we came here, we came on the program, we looked at this, we published the list, so that everybody could look at it.
And the list is still available.
Yes, the list is still available for everybody to peruse it. So you don't have to listen to Walter Lawrence and they are talking nonsense. We know what is on the list, and you can have the list and you can review it as citizens.
And in addition to what Joe is mentioning, I think the president of Guyana is on record when asked why no commission of inquiry that he had promised on this issue. He said that the records, the evidence, is hard to find evidence to support a commission of inquiry. And if the evidence can be found, that's the only way we could move forward on this matter.
Quickly, I think we got probably a few seconds more. I want to touch on one other issue, because I think it's an issue that is being misused with regards to, well, two of them that are linked. One, job loss, where the coalition seems to be denying that 30,000 people lost their jobs, and they said that matter of fact, they created 15,000 jobs in 5 years. Let me give you the other one so both of you can take a double shot at it. And the second one has to do with the state of the economy, the poor state of the economy, where in response to your saying that while the PPP is saying that the economy was destroyed over the past 4.5 years, that there's a projected growth of 84% in 2020, I think, by one of the international bodies, which is linked, the growth is really linked to the oil and gas sector.
Eddie, quickly, listen. When we say 30,000 jobs were lost, we can identify the places and the people and the amount of persons. I have been in the parliament where Mr. Gaskin, who was the minister of business, he comes there and he talk about how many jobs, and I ask him simply, tell me where, tell me the sector. We are yet to get that information. So it's just gap about 15,000 jobs. We can identify the 30,000 jobs. The important thing about growth rate don't necessarily mean enhancement of life of citizens. And that is a fundamental issue. Unless it is linked to people's life being better, all it is are numbers and projections. And we want to get beyond that. Our plan will ensure that growth rate matches social and economic development of the citizens. That is the difference. Not just a growth rate for the IMF and the World Bank to speak about, for the Guyanese people. And when we say the economy isn't doing good and people are suffering, it's not PPP saying so. People talk to the vendors, talk to the shopkeeper, so the people speak about it. We are just saying what was told to us by the people across the length and breadth of this country.
Well, as it pertains to job loss, I can say quickly, we had a rally in Linden only yesterday. And before that rally, I spent about 3 days before walking around and reaching people in Linden. And the amount of gold miners who were in Linden out of work, the amount of timber or forestry workers who were in Linden out of work. One guy even told us that during the PPP time, they had 200 tags, I think, per year to work with, and now they only have 25. Now the tags is basically like the permission to go and cut a tree, right? So there you go. The coalition government has a hand, or the hands deeply involved in creating unemployment in Guyana.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for joining me today, and to the folks who have joined us on social media, both Facebook and YouTube, for this discussion to put to rest the whole issue of the incitement, and to encourage people not to get carried away, and not to be led astray by the rhetoric, the divisive rhetoric coming from members of the coalition, leaders, those who call themselves leaders in the coalition. And no, as we say in Guyanese term, don't let them set you up to find yourselves in problems. To destabilize a country that has been working for you at least the 23 years of the PPP. I understand people are upset, people are frustrated with what happened over the past 4 years, but I think the March 2nd elections is a chance for them to redeem and to change the course and to have some sort of hope as we move forward with PPPC government after March 2nd. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here, and of course, for the listeners and viewers online and on the television. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.